Hi everyone. I just first wanted to draw a distinction because we're talking about neurodiversity and gender dysphoria, but things like autism, ADHD, ADD, these are obviously neurodevelopmental. So you could actually make the case that someone was born this way, but that's just not really the case with gender dysphoria, as far as the evidence so far suggests. So, as we've seen from the Cass report and Hannah Barnes' book, Time to Think, and other research, the evidence from the GIDS clinic, the Tavistock's Child Gender Identity Clinic, suggests that only 2.5% of the children in the clinic were actually there without any serious major underlying condition. In fact, 70% of the kids had more than 5 associated comorbidities such as self-harm, eating disorders, depression, anxiety, bullying. They've been victims of abuse in many cases. They found that the children at GIDS were 10 times more likely to have a parent on the sex offenders register. 25% of the kids at the GIDS clinic at one point had spent time in care. So that's a massive number compared to less than 1% is what you'd normally find in the population. Also, you know, they found, and other reports have found, that about 50% of the children at the GIDS clinic were autistic or had ADHD, and obviously there's a bit of overlap with those. But so we can see that there's a lot of underlying issues here. Over the last 7 years or so, I'd say roughly, we have been encouraged to accept this new kind of idea that if someone has gender dysphoria, and the feelings of distress aren't coming from these other underlying issues, but they're coming from being forced to live as their natal sex. So we're saying that the gender dysphoria is an indicator, really, that they should have been the opposite sex. That's the new framing. And because of that new framing, it's like, well, the job of the clinician isn't to question that, because to question that is like conversion therapy. So it's to give the patient really what they want and essentially to facilitate a transition. However, in light of all the stuff I've just said, I would say that if someone comes to the doctor with gender dysphoria and they want to transition, should we affirm that, or should we say, well, hold on, there could be some really significant underlying things. This could be a symptom of a deeper problem. So in that sense, I would liken it more to something like self-harm or anorexia, when you have got outward distress, but really it's about something else under the surface. And self-harm or anorexia, we should treat it in the same way. So we wouldn't affirm someone who's anorexic's feelings that they're overweight, and we wouldn't affirm someone who's self-harming because maybe they feel worthless. We wouldn't say, yeah, you are worthless. We don't do that. The medical standard of care would be to try to get to the underlying problem and treat that, and help that person get back to who they really are. So you might say at this point, I get why people who have had abuse or bullying or something might want to disassociate from their body, but what's the deal with like half of them being autistic and having ADHD, which the stats show? Obviously, this whole thing, we're going to talk about that, but this is the autism thing is like kind of my story, because to use the good doctor's categorization, I would fit into that kind of the first one, the true trans thing, because I had a gender dysphoria most of my life, and I didn't want to be male. I actually thought I was male, but I was diagnosed with autism in 2015 when I was 25, and it was learning about the autism that actually alleviated and then, you know, finally made the the gender dysphoria actually go away. And there's loads to say about this, but generally speaking, you know, I felt very similar to all the boys and just completely alienated from the girls. And thank you. And I was, in my mind, always failing in the metrics of female success in terms of caring about other people and understanding social rules and keeping up appearance and empathy, all these things. And so I really did disassociate from my sex, and I genuinely thought I was male. But as I say, learning about the autism really changed everything, because there's lots of reasons, but I think the main one is that I learned that the neurological profile of a autistic girl is actually more similar to the average male than the average female in terms of many things, but empathizing is one of them, which, as you can see, contributed. So I actually wasn't imagining. I did genuinely have more in common with my male peers than my female. Haven't got time to go into it, but if you're interested, I would recommend looking up Professor Simon Baron-Cohen's Extreme Male Brain Theory of Autism. But essentially the revelation was I wasn't a man, I was a rarer type of woman. The point about this is there's lots of girls, actually there's lots of people with autism and ADHD out there probably experiencing gender dysphoria needlessly, I might say, because they haven't yet learned about and accepted their differences. So the question of are we overdiagnosing gender dysphoria, I'd say that as long as we continue to affirm gender dysphoria as a sign of being born in the wrong body and then just focusing on that and diagnosing that, then we are overdiagnosing it. But we are going to be missing the underlying problems, and then we're not going to be treating those and ultimately giving the help that the person needs. Also, if we would be diagnosing gender dysphoria a lot less if friends and family felt that the freedom to help the sufferer work through their issues rather than it being seen as a human rights violation. You see what I mean?